Again, I'm only on for a quick moment to give you an update as to where we're moving. Last, we were talking about the African presence in early America and the native community who we have been so used to knowing to be here first. We are now through microbiology and archaeology and anthropology. We have found out and has been conclusively stated that no, the Mongolian Indians, who we know from easily recognizable by the cowboys and Indian movies, were not here first. Though they did come here, but they weren't here first. As many of you know already, which I'm so glad to see much of my audience is educated to this fact, Africans were here in America first. Yes, we were. We did migrate. We are not created here. We did migrate, but we were here first. So, I want to say first and foremost, thank you to my subscribers. You have been wonderful. I've gone on to some of your own sites and looked at what you're doing. It's good to see you're doing healthy and wonderful things, particularly as it pertains to the Black community. It is a wonderful thing to see that you're supporting me and taking time to look at my videos in its entirety. How do I know that you're doing that? Because I can tell by your responses. My viewership has gone skyrocketing, and I love that it is. Though I'm not here to be monetized or will ever be monetized, because I do this for my folk, for my people, I am proud to see that I am getting that support from my subscribers. I am also thank you for your viewership, for those who have come on to view. It's a wonderful thing, and I'm very, very happy for that. Though I will make a comment to some of you because some of the things that I'm reading, I don't know if they are warranted for such a program like mine. This is an educational program. Normally, if you're coming onto my channel, you're coming to be educated by a legal and scholarly professor as I am. I don't know everything in the world, but I do know African and history, which I've been studying for 30 to 40 years. So I'll get to the comments later, but let's go to what's coming up. So I hope to finish off Dr. David Imhotep's book, but there is some news that I recently received that there is a great event that America's about to begin to celebrate. And that event is called the semi-quincentennial anniversary of America. Yes. And as some of you might realize, back in 1976, we celebrated the bicentennial. And America put on a great show for its folks. One of the things that that bothered me during that time, because I was teaching and doing other things, was that the African presence in colonial America, American Revolution, and Declaration of Independence was pretty much left out. Well, I plan to make a difference in that regard on this time around. So when I return with my next broadcast, we'll be moving away from Dr. Imhotep's book a little bit. I'm going to throw some last findings in there. Because most of the information now, that book is about 5 to 10 years old. You can find this on the internet. But what I'm going to give you about African presence in colonial, in the times of the Declaration of Independence, during the American Revolution, our presence has to be known. We have to tell our story because no one else will. Now, the great, I think he's a documentarian now, Ken Burns, who produced such wonderful documentaries as The Civil War, jazz. He also did something on baseball, is doing something on the Declaration of Independence through the American Revolution. Now, he's a great documentarian, but like most of European folks, they failed to mention our importance in this. And based on my few lessons, and the lessons we're going to have, I think it's going to last pretty long, we're going to see that our presence was critical to the Declaration of Independence, and our presence was critical during the American Revolution, and finally our presence was critical to the colonial period. Both African enslaved, emancipated, and as an addition to those free blacks who roamed colonial America for quite some time. All right, so that is going to be what our next broadcast is going to be covering. I'll give you a better update, maybe to prepare for you if you want to do some research to follow me along. I'll be working from several different books, and as I always do, I will present those books to you. So if you might be interested in making copies. But we have to tell the story of Black America in colonial period. We have a lot to do. Most of you know about Crispus Attucks, the first black man that was shot, or the first person that was shot during the American Revolution. I'm going to give you a different perspective on Crispus Attucks, okay? Many of you are not aware of the soldierly our inclusion in the war, in the Revolutionary War on both sides. We're going to get into that. We're going to talk about our role with the Declaration of Independence, how critical, and the codification of slave laws, the codification of whiteness, and the codification of blackness. These terms were never heard about on the planet before the American Revolution. So we want to talk about, and we want to talk about our importance to this revolution. Now, quickly going to my commentators. Here's my little tiff with you. I love your viewership. Please continue to view my channel. What I don't like is some of the vitriol and some of the wording and language that is being used to either describe each other, me, or whoever you might be talking to. I thought by the way I presented myself on my channel that at least civility would be something we all can, take a part in. But obviously I am not correct, all right? I do expect that after having 6,000 to 7,000 views that you're going to get a few folk who are going to, not agree with me, which is wonderful. That's what we want, a dialogue. I am not God. I don't know everything in the world, but I know my history. I've been studying it for 40 years. I didn't just study it. I went to the places to see. I read the books. I've done the scholarship. I've taught it on every level. I kind of know what I'm talking about. If you don't think I am, then I beg you probably to switch to a different channel where you can find your truth at. But there's truly no need to denigrate me or anybody else through your language because you don't agree. I don't know it all, and I never profess to. I don't talk in absolutes, and I use evidence and conclusion. Rarely will you hear me say fact. But what you will hear me say a lot of is that I love my entire community that is black, Hispanic, and those whites who consider and want to support us. Yes, that is my community. Obviously, many of you are not listening to my entirety of my broadcast. How do I know that? Because YouTube gathers analytics, evidence to provide to me about those who are on my broadcast. So I can tell those who are really listening and those who just have probably nothing to do at the time but get 3 to 4 minutes of what you hear me say and then make a conclusion or come to some sort of judgment. This is what they call prejudice. Prejudge. Prejudice. When you prejudge someone, you are being prejudiced. And instead of picking up 5 to 10 seconds or minutes of my broadcast, I'd appreciate it, if you want, because you don't have to remain. You can find another channel to go to. But I appreciate it at least if you listen to the entire broadcast to see that the whole human family is my family. I have and hold no prejudice against any people. I am an example of the true African spirit. It's called humanity. We were the first humans. Therefore, we hold the most humanity more than anyone. And I don't need any facts to prove that. You can just watch what goes on with black people, and you can tell that there's one thing we do have is humanity. So, the last thing I want to say on that issue is something called identity. Now, if there's one distinction between the African community and the Latino community, is our identity. You see, being in this country for 250 years as slave and non-emancipated people, if there's one thing we have been told time and time again, is who we are. We've been told and used different terms. Started out with the Nigger word, which I try not to use too much. We became colored at one time. We soon became African Americans and blacks. And then at one point we were Negroes. But one thing has stuck with us all through, that our color is black and that we are black people who have descended from Africa. Now in the Latin community, though many of you by your presence can say you are white or black or Hispanic, you have had some problems with identity based on what people have said scholarly and what the layman has said about you. And many of you have recognized yourself. For example, some people might say, well, Chicanos or Latinos or Chicanos or Puerto Ricans are 70% white, 25% black. There's a whole plethora of designations that Latinos can make for themselves because they are representative of the whole spectrum of species, and I don't want to use race because there is only one race. But the color recognition, your phenotype, demonstrates and shows to the world that you have black ancestry, white ancestry, your own native ancestry, and with that said, there is sometimes a shifting difference with your identity. Something that Africans, we don't have too much to worry about because we've always been called black or African. Your community might have a pretty much different identification. Some of you identify with being African, some of you identify with being white. Whatever, that's not a problem we have. The other and final thing is when people use and make terms like my DNA, my DNA, my DNA. DNA is a very complex topic. If you've had some sort of ancestry DNA done for you, that's wonderful because it gets you closer to who you are. But unless you understand the complexity of DNA, which would make you a microbiologist, and I have not seen anyone in my viewers identify themselves as microbiologists or biologists, then making reference to DNA, that you're part this, 70% that, 40% that, well, I hate to tell you folks, you're really misinformed. DNA cannot alone tell the blackest of black or the whitest of white who and what you are. Do some research. You might have gone to an ancestry.com. But if you look at one of my videos, I do a very, very deep dive into what that's about. So when you claim that you're a 75 this or a 25 that, it's a very slippery slope that you're going down. You cannot just count on the exactness of a DNA registry, an African ancestry, whatever these places are called, and believe yourself to be that. It takes a little more, and I'm sure these sites or these places that you've gone to where you've collected this information, because I'm assuming that who's using the term DNA has done some research or has had the DNA testing done. And if you know anything about that, the DNA test sites will tell you this is not perfect science. Even in the court of law, when a detective uses DNA to track someone, he has to have corroborating evidence. DNA alone does not tell you where you're from. So I'm not going to go too deep diving into that topic, but for those, since that seems to be the prevalence of what people are saying and using, I had to speak to it. So let me finalize and end. It was a wonderful topic, but I want you guys to know who are following me. I will be moving on from that topic, and we'll be talking about the African presence in colonial declaration and the American Revolution, and what that means. We'll also be talking about women. We'll be talking about the red man, the white man, the African man, and all those who took part in the colonial period. And you're going to be wonderfully surprised and happy to hear some information that I know not is out in the general public. So come on and listen in. Come on and check it out. I'll be making my first broadcast on this on Wednesday, this Wednesday coming up at 7:30 p.m. For those who want to join, I'm going to take chats and take questions briefly on the Latino issue for about maybe 5 to 10 minutes. Then that issue will be done. The only way you'll hear any more of that will be if you go back to the video that I did for 37 minutes. Other than that, that topic is done for. We're going back to scholarship now and talking about the African presence in colonial America, the American Revolution, and its influence on the Declaration of Independence. Remember, in July 2026, beginning, I should say in January, this country will begin to celebrate its semi-quincentennial, meaning its 250-year birth or adoption of the Declaration of Independence. And we're going to talk about how Africans, how we were a part of that, integral to that separation, as well as that coming together of the 13 colonies, and what our role was in that particular time period. And I guarantee you, you're going to love it. Now, one last thing. On Wednesday, we also will be going into something else, because many of you are talking about the history of white folks, the involvement, how they evolved, and black folks. So we're going to do a lesson on natural selection, Darwin's theory, except more expansive. I'm going to have some slides to give you an example so you can understand how Europeans evolved from the Caucasus Mountains, how Africans migrated from Africa, how natural selection tells us who we're going to be, and the Creator finally stamp on us as human beings. And with that said, I want to tell my wonderful audience, all of you, Latinos, whites, my black people who I love the most, Ashe, have a wonderful evening, and keep subscribing